now I'm going to go into poly modeling and I'll make a sphere, and I'm going to give it right click and say assign new material, Arnold AI standard surface. I'll bring this up above that, and then I'm going to okay, and so now I want to use the this image, this glitter image, to drive both the color node, but I'm also going to use it as to drive the bump map node, and then a few other items like metalness and specular. So first I'm going to apply the bump map. So I'm going to go down to the geometry tab and select the not opacity. I'm going to select the bump mapping node, and I'm going to attach it to the glitter file, that black glitter file. And that's going to, I'm going to now run IPR. So that's going to actually create like a dimpled texture, right? So it's Maya, or Arnold and Maya are doing its best to kind of use that black and white image to drive a height map where the kind of like sparkly nodes are high and they're kind of creating these little dimples out, and then there's like a shadow underneath the object. So I'm also going to use that, I think, like, I'm gonna, I think, change the this file. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to I can change the bump depth here, so I can say I want it to be like higher or lower, so like more exaggerated. So I'm going to bump it up just a little bit, and then I'm going to select the color as well. Let's actually try run IPR again. Yeah, so now I'm getting a little bit more exaggeration here. So some of those kind of 50% grays are now kind of starting to get bumped out and stimpling on the image texture. So that's not any color data, that's just kind of using it as like as the bump map. So if I wanted to go in and add the color data, I could say File, and then select the glitter, and then let's say run IPR again. All right, so now you can start to see that the color data, those kind of bright sparkly bits, are actually driving now color, the base color, in addition to kind of giving it that stippled look. I can also use that image to drive diffuseness and things like metalness. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to select my object, and from my diffuse roughness here, so I'm afraid to bring it, I'm going to bring it up all the way, and then open IPR again so you can kind of see the difference. And bring up the specular roughness all the way. Maybe that was the wrong call. But it's going to turn it into more of like a Lambert material, right? So like the AI standard surface, as it's kind of, deployed, its default is kind of like shiny, right? Okay, so here we go. So now I have the specular, which has to do with shininess, kind of turned all the way up, and then we're not seeing quite as much of the image texture because the light isn't bouncing around as much on top of those dimples. We're not seeing those high reliefs or low lows. So I'm actually going to use, instead of driving this roughness all the way up with my slider, I'm actually going to shut this down because don't want that to crash, and I'm going to run both diffuse roughness, metalness, and this roughness node using the same image texture. So glitter black, open, and select my object, roughness file, and glitter black. And then let's see what that looks like. I forgot one. And select my object, roughness, and then my metalness, yeah. And then let's let's actually run it through. Let's see what it looks like through my Arnold preview. Looks like it's clipping, and that could be the metalness. That's one forward. Let's actually break that. Yeah, I think that that's going to be a little bit better. Let's run that IPR. And bring the metalness down. So metalness is kind of like a chrome. So if it's set really high and there's nothing reflecting like in the background around the object, then it's yeah. So I think I'd actually want to take the image texture, diffuse roughness. Let me break that. See what happens. It looks pretty good. I might want to make it a little bit smaller so I can repeat the UV in the same way. So I'm now driving the bump mapping with like wrapping the image twice around the object so that it's more granular, not quite so big. And I'll do the same thing here for make sure that they all match. And this is actually where, let's see if I can open, I'm going to shut you down. The hyper shader can be quite useful. So let's say graph this network. There we go. All right, so I have this place 2D texture running the bump map, but I would probably want to take the color, since I'm going to delete the same. These are basically duplicates, right? And so I'm running the alpha out into the specular roughness, and I'm going to delete this and run just out of this single node, right? So the alpha is going to be running into the bump map value and into the normal camera, but it can also run into specular roughness. And then the color node can come out and then run this base color here. So that will allow me to use the same placement, that kind of like duplicating the image twice around the UV mapping. So I don't have to go in and do it every single time for each node. So if I wanted to kind of adjust this place 2D texture, I can say repeat, maybe 5 times, and then it gets almost like sand or something. Yeah, really, really fine. But I'm going to keep it at place twice. And when I adjust it here, it's going to adjust for the bump mapping, for the specular roughness, and for the base color. So if I go back over here, shut this down, and then do another run IPR, then I can see that the texture is much finer. And let's go back into, here we go. I also think this image texture is because we have such consistent lighting, I'm actually going to bring the sky dome down, I think, a little bit, and then add, let's say down. Should have done this on the larger computer, but I don't like that the camera was being weird and it's hard to get set up. Anyway, I'll just edit this out for you all. Okay, I'm going to shut that down. So I'm going to bring the intensity of the sky dome up, and then I'll add something like maybe a spotlight to really kind of make this obvious what's going on here. So spotlight, bring it up and rotate, and bring quadratic intensity like 1000. There we go. And cone angle, bring that up. And penumbra, maybe bring that up too. All right. Let's run IPR again. There we go. There's this kind of flat area. It's coming through on the Arnold render, but it's not. There we go. So it was just the lighting. So getting more lights kind of like raking across the face so that the bump mapping really starts kind of becoming explicit. So here's some of those like fireflies. This is actually caused by like spots of like intense shininess. So I would need to increase the samples of the specular render settings to kind of knock those down. So the graininess and the diffuse is kind of a similar problem for diffuse material. Once you start getting into glasses and kind of complex shiny materials, these fireflies, these hot like bright white spots are kind of a similar problem. So I'd go into render settings, and then I'd want to create the specular probably at 8 and increase this to 4. And I might need to clamp. So clamping is like saying it kind of brings down the high highs and the kind of low lows, so that everything's kind of, you know, the light differential doesn't quite peak out or clip at this kind of like bright white, but it does make everything kind of more like not as high contrast, a little bit more muted. So that can deliver some undesired effects. So I'm going to play with the render settings and see if I can knock out these fireflies and get out a rendered image for you all. Oh, one more thing I did want to show you was the alpha, right? So using a black and white image to drive the transparency. So I'm going to select my image and then AI standard surface, and then back down in geometry, this opacity tab. I'm going to use a file to drive opacity, and I'm going to connect. Hi, Kitty. I don't know if you can hear that. Oh, so sad. You want to play toy? Sorry. What did I want to use? Brick. I wanted to use brick. And let's see here. You can kind of start to make out these like little black lines here in the brick texture. So once I turn on the opacity, uncheck the opacity tab in my sphere, in my P-sphere shape tab, I need to uncheck the opacity, and then it will start rendering the black areas in the image as transparent. All right, so that's the opacity tab. So I'm going to go around and kind of probably make the image texture of the brick a little bit bigger, so I can go in and play around with that, and then I'm going to play around with some render settings, and I'll post the image and let you know which were the settings that I liked, that I ended up with, and how long it took. All right, I hope you all enjoy this and enjoy playing with textures, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. Bye.